Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session about AI on the Spot Mini Lessons for Teachers. And we are so excited to have you joining us today. We have amazing things that are going to be coming your way. And I'm so excited to learn alongside of all of you with our amazing presenter, Cami. My name is Katie, and I will be kind of here supporting, hanging out, adding resources and links in the chat for you, and learning right alongside all of you. So I'm excited to be here with all of you today. I am in Montana, down in the United States, and I'm an educator and just excited to learn and bring this into the classroom. So I will pass this off to our amazing presenter and just welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. As I go ahead and introduce myself, we would love to know who you are, where you're joining us from. Mr. Brian Carpenter from BC. I hope it's not snowing there. Katie, I have to know, is it snowing in Montana? Because it is snowing like Alberta tip to tail, it seems.
Yes, it is. It's snowing right now as we speak. We've had quite a bit of snow over the last few days, so it is cold and snowy here too.
Yes. So it's been an interesting system. So welcome. And so a little bit about, I think we got a slide here. There's me. So I teach in Alberta. I'm in the east corner of Alberta. I'm a district instructional coach, consultant role here. I spent over 20 years in the English and language arts classroom. So that's kind of my history. And now in my role, I do lots with technology. I've been doing lots with AI all over the place. We've got Len with us from Manitoba, and I don't think it's snowing for Manitoba. We did the weather check earlier. Glad to see so many Manitoba friends with us today. I'm coming to you from the intersection of Treaty 4 and 7 territory. My district also has Treaty 6 territory. And so this is the land of the Kainai, Piikani, the Stoney Nakoda, and from the Treaty 4, the Sioux, the Cree, and the Saulteaux people. And so we just want to honor the land. And I always think about days like this when I'm sitting in my nice warm home, how our Indigenous forefathers had to so much know the land, and they would have been coming to a winter place by now, and how their seasons of rhythms of the land were so important. And I yearn to get that back in our teaching and our ways as well. Okay, so we are both, Katie and I, coming to you from Logix Academy. Excited to be hosting this series today, a whole morning AI session. And actually, Katie didn't say, but Katie has been the planner, the mastermind behind all of this. She's been our lead. And so I've had a great morning of learning. I hope you have too. We'd love to know if you've gotten to some other sessions, maybe something that you've already learned today. We are coming to you as a Microsoft Global Education Partner, a Google Education Partner, Minecraft Partner, Apple Partner. So at Logix, we do all the things. We love to do training. So Katie and I are on the trainer side. Logix also has a whole, I want to say gadgets. That's not the right word. Has a whole tools side as well. And so from early education right up to high school, you might recognize some of the little tailbots, the robots that we have. So STEM, 3D printing, microscopes. If you go to logixacademy.com/products, you can see and check out our whole piece there. And then if you go to logix.com/events, we love CS Computer Science Week at Logix. And so that's always about the second week in December. And we usually have a great lineup there, from Google to lots of Minecraft. The Minecraft has just dropped a tomato sphere world. And if you've ever worked with teachers who've gotten the tomato seeds that have been up in the International Space Station, it's connected to that. So a whole world there. So there'll be some great tomato sphere programming in English and in French. And there'll be some AI sessions, some Google sessions. Katie, anything you'd like to add about the CS Week, Ed Week coming up?
Just want to let you know that we are just excited to have so many different opportunities. They're happening at different days and different times, but no matter whether you can attend it live or not, register because you can always watch it after the fact. So make sure if it's a topic you're interested in, register for it because then you'll get access to even watch it, even if you can't maybe attend it at that exact time.
Well, and actually, this is important to mention. Today is like a teacher day. Like we are talking to teachers, we're having teacher conversations. The CS Ed Week is co-taught, and so those program times 10 and 1 Eastern. So for Brian and I and Katie on the west side of the world, that 10 a.m. will be too early for our students, but they are co-taught lessons, and you can watch the recording with the students. So one of us Logix folks will come in, we lead the lesson. It's geared towards students. We have the students do the work, do the things. We try to make it as hands-on as possible so that your students have an opportunity to learn about computer science. Katie, you do this one.
We just want to take a few moments to say a big thank you to Microsoft for bringing us here to you today. We want to just sincerely thank them for their generosity and support of this workshop series as a part of their commitment to fostering a broader understanding of AI.
All right, so today is about a series of mini lessons for teachers that hopefully will give you tools and ideas that you can then use to teach your students about AI. And so as I've been learning about AI, my thoughts have shifted on what that needs to look like. And so at first I thought, okay, well, we'll learn about AI as teachers and then we'll just use it with students. And I didn't really know what that looked like, but my thinking has really been shaped by people like Vicki Davis, the Cool Cat Teacher. She has the 10-Minute Teacher podcast, for example. And she really got me thinking about how we need to actually know our students don't know about AI. Our teachers don't know about AI. And so before we can really use AI or before we should use AI, it's helpful to know a little bit about how it works and probably its shortcomings, the things that we need to be on the lookout for. And so this is a series of actually little mini lessons, mini videos that I've built, and I'll share that at the end in case you're interested. But today we're going to walk through some of those. Item 1, 2, and 3 that I did not do. I thought I had that. Okay. Anyways, so we are going to walk through a bunch of mini lessons that help you give tools or help you have items in your hand that you can use to teach. So item 1 is going to be bias. Item 2 is going to be hallucinations. I've got another slide. This one I did not merge my slides very well. We're going to start with a few key background ideas. And this is great to even kind of give to your students or your teachers as we are starting to look at how AI fits together. And I think this is a good conversation to have with your kids over and over. And so we know that artificial intelligence, that big sphere, has been around since the 50s. Scientists have been trying to teach computers to think, right? And so it's a sorting machine. This is an apple, this is a banana, right? So that kind of big sorting AI that's been starting from back in the beginning. This image actually is from AI for Education, which is a great website to help us as teachers, as districts, teach about AI to teachers and students. Then we have to also talk about machine learning. And so that's where computers start to learn from data without the human telling them. So they're able to learn as a machine, trial and error. And then we get into deep learning. And finally, we're at this point of generative AI. Deep learning would be, things like Siri or Hey Google or Netflix can tell us what we'd like to watch next, or YouTube predicts, or even our GPS suggests a route for us to get to where we want. But generative AI is a whole different plane, and it's important for us to make sure that we're having this chat with our teachers and our students. It's something entirely new. When we do a Google search, a traditional Google search or a traditional Microsoft Bing search, the internet is checking for a match. It's looking for something that exists to pull it in to say, yep, that's the thing. that you're looking for, try this or look at this. So it's like going through that internet library. Generative AI is completely new. Every time we put in a prompt, it's generating something unique for us. And so that's something that people don't necessarily realize or understand. And so that is, this is a nice diagram to just kind of give a brief but quick talk about all those different layers. Now, this is a video that it's from code.org. I think we're just gonna, I have it in here as a resource. Katie has put the link in there. We won't watch it, but it's a really nice one to use with your students. These two gals are able to, they're both, AI experts, they're doctors in AI. And so they go through and they break down what machine learning is like. And so that's a really nice resource. I've tried to provide us with lots of resources as we've gone through here. Another one is a great sorting mechanism, a nice site as well. So let's dive into the topics of these little mini lessons. And why is this? Okay. So here's our topics. We're going to look at bias, misinformation or disinformation, or you might have heard it called hallucinations or fabrication. AI is inaccurate, but it'll tell us. So there's that hallucination again. And then AI is unimaginative. And it's important to show our kids for this. We've got a great object lesson we're going to try in a moment, talking about plagiarism. We need to talk to kids about safety and privacy. And give them some tools for that. And then this last one is actually something that I've been stewing about for a long time. And I don't actually have my thing for this yet. And so I'm going to ask that you might ask us to brainstorm at the end. You might have some great examples for me for the end. How do we have that? How do we convince our students that they can't just prompt and paste and submit? How do we convince our students that they shouldn't become over-reliant on AI, that think about going to the gym, that those reps are important. And without those reps in our learning, in reading, math, all the things, we risk important skill loss. How do we frame that for kids? I am looking for ideas. Okay, so the first thing we're going to dive into is about AI and bias. So on those little mini videos, I talk a little bit about what that looks like. So when we talk about AI, there's outputs and inputs. And so what we get out is influenced by what has been put into the AI. And so those large language models, OpenAI has ChatGPT, Gemini is a large language model for Google, Claude, you might be familiar with some of those. Those large language models have been programmed to basically scrape, they use the term scrape the internet. And so they've been for years reading the internet, but they are taking everything. They are not limited to scholarly journals or peer-approved resources. And so it's important that our teachers, that our students know that it's combing Wikipedia, it's combing YouTube videos, the captions, it's combing Reddit, it's combing social media. And that is where it's getting its content from. So it's super important that we realize that that is part of the input. I don't know about you, but it's not too hard to find some questionable content in some of those spaces. And so while it does give us a wide range of opinions, it's not all factual. It's not all for real, but AI doesn't necessarily determine that because it's just it's a predicting machine. What comes next? What's the most logical word after this word? What's the most logical pixel in a picture? It's a predicting machine. And so it helps if we understand what's gone into the AI. And then another piece when we're talking about bias is to think about web content. And we're going to do a little activity that hopefully will help us out with this. What is the internet made up of? Content is predominantly English, right? The vast majority of the web is in English, and the vast majority of content creators have been North American or European. And some people might even go a little step further and say, well, most of the majority of web content is written by white men. And so that is super important to be aware of. So then the question becomes, whose voices are missing? Katie, what pops into your mind first when you're asked that question? Whose voices are missing? Who hasn't got a big footprint on the internet?
I think that would be people and or like companies that don't have funding to be putting their content out there. There is so much and so many different things that are created by people, and they may be on the internet, but no one finds them because there's no one promoting them or sharing them. Just simply because they don't have the funding or money, or they're not backed by a big company, especially in education, like by a big publisher. If this is something that's been created by someone individually or a small publisher, people may never find it.
Excellent. I also think about whole parts of the world that aren't as prevalent on the internet. We'd love to know in the chat, when you think about whose voices are missing, what comes to mind. I've done some education training, AI training in Africa. And let me tell you, I was surprised at how AI did, but it's shallow. There's not it doesn't have as much to draw from. So this is the important conversation that we have. And then we look for we start to do some object lessons. And so here's an interesting one. And I see I did not get my slide there. What happens if you go to the internet and you search for a full glass of red wine? Let's go over. I'm going to pop over and do that. Let me just get over here. I'm going to change my tab. So I'm just in Google, and I'm going to go full glass of red wine. Katie, what do you predict?
I predict a picture of a
Okay.
full glass of red wine.
Okay. Now, what do you notice about most of these pictures of red glasses of red wine? Are they full? There's actually some,
Yeah, not all
but
of them though.
not all of them. So typically when we look at red wine or wine, it's typically, that half to a third that is the restaurant pour. And so these are kind of full, but typically we don't see a lot of full red wine glasses on the internet. And so if we were to search that, it would be less likely to be a full glass of red wine. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Katie, I'm getting a message about browser connection. Are we still seeing me okay? I think we are.
Yeah, everything is fine on my
Okay.
end.
Okay.
And Brian, thanks for sharing. You were right. You were right on the money there.
Okay. So here's something that we can I've done this. This is the search results that I've shown on the screen. We can do this live. I'll just show these. But if we take a look at this, when we search nurse and we take a look at what's happening here, most of these nurses are female. There's one, maybe two male nurses, but most are female. When we look at it, most are fairly young, and there's a mix of women of color, a few white women, but lots of women of color. When we look at the bottom and we look at the word doctor, just a straight up search for doctor, predominantly male. There's a couple females, but mostly male. And then notice the third, the one with the gal in the blue scrubs. You got the doctor as the male, and the nurse is female. And so this type of image, like, we have to draw attention, because the web, AI, this is what it's combing, this is what it's searching. And so whatever is put up into the website, into the internet, that's its data. And so that has changed, actually, as AI bias people have been shining lights on that. And I've noticed actually a change in recent months that are my Google searches are shifting. Now, my Google search and Katie's Google search and my husband's Google search and my kids' Google search are also impacted by our past, where we're located, our IP address, and what we search for. So there is that as well. So even if we both search the same thing, we would get different things. But that's part of it, right? Like, what is out there? So I show this slide to kids, and then I ask them to take a turn and do a search of one of these things. So we would love it. Katie, I'm going to invite you to do this as well, to take a look at some of these topics and throw it into a Google image search or a Bing, whatever you're using, but an image search. And what are you finding? So you might try things like restaurant server, elementary teacher, and then try secondary teacher or high school teacher, cleaner, house cleaner. Let's take a moment and try some of those. And we would love it if you would tell us what you tried, and then what did you notice about your results? I'm going to come over here and try one.
So I just did the elementary teacher, and
Yep.
I noticed that it was mainly younger women, mostly white. And then just to kind of completely contrast that, I then searched professor, which was mainly male, older, which I thought was interesting.
Right. And now, Katie, are the professors standing in front of a chalkboard?
Yes, or a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And the elementary teachers, they were mainly with students around them.
Yes. So here's my elementary teacher search. So we've got, there's a male, but look at classrooms full of kids, mostly female. I mean, there's the odd male, but for sure. And now if we change that, let's go to professor. Okay, there's a couple ladies. But it's interesting, almost always in front of a whiteboard. And so certainly, changing, we've got some colored, non-white people. There's a couple ladies. So it is changing. And maybe because I've done this so much, I'm not sure. Katie, you get mostly white guys?
Yes.
Okay. Brian, female, has done childcare, female care worker with multiracial children. Here, I'll put the list up again of what we're looking for. Just give you a moment there to try some other ones. So here's an interesting one. And I had a really interesting conversation at a group of school leaders when I did this one. I've done truck driver in this one. And one of my school leaders said, well, Cami, truck drivers are mostly men. That's not bias. It's just the way it is. Now, I said, okay, well, you're thinking, I've led you to think male, female in this regard. But what about the ethnic background? Like, we've got a few females here. Certainly, Brian in BC, where I'm at as well, most of our truck drivers now are, it's not the white guy in a big Mack truck. Often it's new Canadians, people of different ethnic origins by far, and we see a little bit of that. But most times when I pass truck drivers now, at least in Alberta, BC as well, they're most likely wearing a turban, right? And so I don't even see that at all. And so isn't it interesting how that's not even represented there? Any other thoughts? What else do we have here? Indo-Canadian truck drivers. Thank you. Yeah, for sure, Brian. And you'll notice my results here don't show any Indo-Canadian truck drivers. So interesting, right? So if I'm asking AI about truck driving, it's going to this is what it's scraping from. So that is kind of how that idea works. So thanks for adding your results. If we were doing this in class, we would, either live demo on the screen, have our kids do that. Here are some of my results, right? And then I've been sharing with you. House cleaning is an interesting one. Almost predominantly females. And for some reason, house cleaning always involves vacuuming, lots of vacuuming. Isn't that interesting? So it's just important that we think of that lens when we're thinking about bias. There's lots of ways to look at that, but a simple image search can start to help us become aware of that internet that has fed and has programmed our generative AI. Katie, any other comments, things that you noticed in your searches?
I just think it's interesting that you pointed out that what you're seeing may also just be different for your specific area versus other areas. I have never thought of it that way, to kind of think about what I'm seeing in comparison to my area.
Yes. And so, we do know that because our Google searches are influenced by AI and algorithms, so sometimes that can influence as well. But that is such a simple way to help understand the bias that exists on the bigger internet that has programmed generative AI. Brian says Adobe Express text to image shows this. Brian, do you want to tell us a little bit more? Like it shows the bias, it confirms the bias. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean there as we continue. So this, I've got trying to put some informational slides for you as teachers. This is from Holly Clark and her book. And so it's a nice little graphic about AI bias, some things to look for. So just a little teacher resource for you that I've thrown in as well. But we have to show our kids when we notice bias in our outputs, we have to identify that. They don't learn to see it unless we are saying, "Ooh, flag, look over here." So Brian's saying, yes, it confirms the bias with simple prompts. We have to be more specific for sure. Yes. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to look at is this is a super important object lesson, and there's a real light bulb moment that might happen, and we'll see if this happens with you folks today as well. So AI is unimaginative, or we might say predictable. So creativity is a complex human trait. Imagination, originality, what we've done before, what we haven't tried yet. This is those are nuances that are difficult to train, especially because AI is trained to predict, and AI is based on reproducing what's already out there. And it works on prediction patterns from its training data. Generative AI is a pattern machine. And so creativity is difficult. And so at this point, that's still, even though AI can produce some pretty creative things, that's still a real differentiator. It's helpful for our students to understand the predictability. And here's a fun way that we can do that. So Katie, Lan, Brian, others in the chat, I'd love you to help us out with this. In the chat, let's brainstorm some dogs' names, some pigs' names, and some places in New York that you might want to visit, some famous New York landmarks. So, for example, I might put in Central Park. A dog might be Rover. So help me in the chat here with some predictions. We've got Spot, Max, Rover, Central Park, Statue of Liberty. Thanks, Len. Let's keep going. Just put them in there. Pig Wilbur for sure. Eating hot dogs at a hot dog stand. Ellis Island, Empire State Building. Yes, keep them coming. Keep them coming. What else? Broadway. Brooklyn. Yes. Okay. Let's do some pig. We've got a few pigs' names. Maybe Percy. The Rockefeller Center, good one. Babe. All right, so we've got the idea. So you it's even better if you put it into a nice chart so that you can compare afterwards. We're just going to do it in the chat. We've seen those all. Oh, Brian Carpenter. In every crowd, there is someone who's had a pig named Bacon. All right. So what we do now is we've got our list, and it's best if we put it into a Google Doc and display that. We just won't take time for that today. So we stop the recording, we stop the play and pause video, or we do this as a group. We put it in the chart so students can see it. Then here's a list. Look at, there's Bacon, Wilbur, Babe. This is from other times that I've done this. Look at how many of the things that we have. Madison Square Garden, right? So our list, this is a previous list that I've done. It's pretty similar to ours. So then what we do is we go and we put this prompt into Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot. And so, of course, I forgot to put that in my clipboard. I'm just going to pop over here and grab that. Okay, so I'm going to come over to Gemini. Katie, can you pop my black Gemini screen up there for me? Perfect. Okay, so in Gemini now, I'm going to put this simple prompt. Tell a story of a dog, a horse, a pig having a grand adventure in New York City. Write it at the 5th grade reading level. So I'm going to do that in Gemini. Now, what we would also want to do is we would want to do it in Copilot. We'd want to do it in ChatGPT. And so let's take a look at our output here and see what we've got. We've got cabs. Oh, we didn't do yellow taxis or cabs. Buster. We didn't have Buster. His owner is a veterinarian. Buster was embarking on a grand adventure with 2 unlikely companions, a majestic horse named Spirit and a pig named Pip. So they give us some background information. The adventure begins at Central Park. Yes. Okay, and then they go to Times Square. Check. Lights, billboards, people. They navigated the crowds, dodging pedestrians, avoiding the busy traffic. They go to the Statue of Liberty. Now, here's the end. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, Buster, Spirit, Pip returned to their starting point. They had faced challenges, made new friends, experienced the magic of New York City. As they drifted off to sleep, they dreamed of their next grand adventure, knowing that the world was their oyster. Okay, now, I invite you to actually put that same prompt, try that in something that's like ChatGPT or Gemini. What I'm interested in is kind of what happens at the end or the whole thing. So let's just pop over back to our deck here. I've got some screenshots of other ones that I've done. So this was Perplexity, which is kind of a version of a large language model. Max, Oink, Central Park, Times Square, skyscrapers. This was ChatGPT, Percy, taxis, skyscrapers, Central Park, Times Square. If you've put the prompt in, tell us in the chat what are some of the things that showed up in yours that we perhaps predicted. This one has Penelope the pig, Rusty the dog, honking taxis, hot dogs, Central Park. Now, one thing that I would also, I should have done, okay, thank you, Brian. Yes, the end. Tired but happy. They returned. Oh, you had Max. Look at that. I'm going to pop this up here. They returned to their farm with stories to tell. No matter where they went, as long as they were together, every day could be an adventure. Yes, Brian's in Microsoft land with Copilot over there. Notice the differences. And while it's great to point out we predicted all of these things, the endings of these stories are so similar. Katie, did you happen to get a story with an ending?
I did. I haven't copied it over, but it's very similar to the same type of thing. It kind of like What I'm noticing about the ending is it's like a requiring some sort of wrap up. Like it
Yes.
must wrap it up with a pretty little bow.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. Penelope the pig never gets run over by a taxi. That doesn't happen. Like I've done this a lot of times. And they all live happily ever after and they return to their farm in the glowing sunset, tired but happy. And so always a happy ending, but not just a happy ending, Brian, but so happy, but predictable. And there's all of these elements. And so it's fascinating to show them like, here's 3 different tools, the same, and even to print these out. For sure, we don't like sad stories. We gave it a 5th grade reading level. We could say, okay, now rewrite it with Penelope the pig getting run over by a car. Like we can ask it for that and it'll give it to us. But the thing we want to show our students is how predictable this is. And if we do this 5 times and we put the stories out side by side, or even if you give kids 3 copies and highlighters for them to identify similarities, that is a powerful, powerful lesson for them. So then, we could take that a step further. If you are using AI, prompting and pasting and submitting that to me, Brian and I both work in online and distance learning schools. And I don't know about you, Brian, but that's certainly an issue in fully online. It's an issue everywhere, but certainly in online schools as well. It's obvious, right? If you're prompting and pasting, this is how obvious it is to us. And so that has been a big eye opener when I have done that with students. Katie, comments? Brian, Len, others, any comments on that one?
It's so interesting. I love the pointing out of how predictable it is, and you don't really notice it until you start layering them side by side. And I think that's such an interesting thing, and so important to share with our students because it's something that I think would be really eye-opening to them.
Mm-hmm. Brian, I like to say prompting and pasting is pathetic. And we can kind of show them in this regard here. So what are some takeaways about this unimaginative piece? Using generative AI without revising, without editing is obvious. And so our junior high, our high school students who are trying to just boop, 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 prompt, paste, submit, put it in Google Classroom, put it in Teams as their assignment, they need to see, ooh, this is what it looks like. And so then from that, outputs are unique. No 2 are exactly alike. No, they're all unique, but the distinct similarities are incredible. And so those are the things that we want to help our kids understand and realize. They need to learn that about AI. Teachers, every week I have teachers that email, Cami, don't you have an AI detector? Can't we use an AI detector? The answer is no. You need to be the AI detector. Teachers need to practice this kind of thing, and it starts to become really obvious. So that's kind of that takeaway. This is a super powerful little object lesson. Okay. AI hallucinates. I've also started to hear the word AI fabricates. I like to think about AI sometimes and say it is like your best friend who or that friend who you might have lettuce, hanging out of your teeth or a piece of spinach, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, you look great." Like it doesn't matter what's happening, AI will tell you happily what you want. So it's like that best friend who, or not the best friend, it's like that friend who just whatever you want to hear, that's what it's going to tell you. And so when I think about AI hallucinating, it will be perfectly certain that it's telling you the right answer. So we've looked at AI for bias, AI is unimaginative. Let's dive into some of that misinformation, disinformation, a hallucination. So I've had a couple conversations recently with teachers, and they're like, "Oh, well, no one told me that AI would lie to me." Like they didn't, and they haven't understood that AI can produce garbage or that AI can produce inaccurate and absolutely false results. And so I'm like, oh, this is why this about AI conversation is so important, because we have highly educated teachers who haven't realized that yet. And so we need to show, we need to model, we actually need to save those examples. So we need to just help our colleagues, our students realize that AI is a probability machine, not a thinking machine. And so then if we go back to that piece about bias, what's feeding AI? What's it scraping off the internet? Reddit, social media, blog posts that are human opinions, not fact. Okay, and false results with confidence. Yes, that's absolutely it, Brian. Like, how many R letters are in the word error? I've seen that with strawberry too, right? Like, there. Yes, AI will happily lie to us. I like to say. So, some common causes. Important to kind of throw these out as thought provokers for our teachers and our students. Inaccurate data, right? So it's based on the internet, which is written. There's some facts on the internet. There's lots of opinions. There's lots of biased opinions, and it's not differentiating. It's not saying, "Ooh, this one's from a more scholarly source. I'm going to give that a higher weight." It doesn't work that way. It just combs. AI might be missing content, or sorry, context. It doesn't necessarily get the fine points that we as a human educator would say, okay, well, this website is more reliable than this. It doesn't get that content. Obscure topics, like if you're Brian, you're a chemist, and if you take a really specific chemistry topic and you ask AI something that hasn't been written about or hasn't been talked about a lot, or a language arts teacher, a really obscure novel or a new novel, something that it doesn't know about, that's less published. And Katie, you talked about that at the very beginning, right? Pieces that have been published by smaller corporations. Those obscure things, the internet isn't full of that, and so it doesn't know. So those are some of the pieces. And yes, Len has got a great point, and I've got some of those in there. Len's reminding us that most AI tools, whether it's the big large language models or some of the edu tools like Magic School or DFID or School AI, have a warning. Now, it is tiny print, but most do have that and pop that up. So just a couple things, some examples. This one's hard to recreate in real time and necessarily get some, but I've got some examples here. And so what I would say, as we prompt and we practice, it's important to kind of collect those. One thing that will happen is if you ask different models for resources or for proof or for links, it might generate something that looks like a URL but is totally nonsensical. And we also know that AI training models, this is an older slide. I see that the training model was to September 2021. Our cutoff is new, but it's not up to November 2024. So is it real? Is it new? Here's an interesting one as well. So this is an output. I think I picked this off of Twitter, trying to have image generation of an Inuit person. And so we have an Inuit person on a snowy background, but then look at the lodging in the background. It's a teepee with long pine poles. So there are not trees like that in the north. So it's generated something, it's put it together, and I'd say particularly often with Indigenous prompts, it can't contextualize. It's not very good at that. You might have heard about the Air Canada case where there's an Air Canada chatbot giving wrong information, fake policies, making them up, right? So AI hallucinates. Here's just a screenshot of a bunch of other examples. The one that looks like a little multiple choice question was from an AI assessment tool, right? All these, I'll make a quiz, I'll do a thing. It's about Charlotte's Web, and it's asking, back to our pig, which of the following are Wilbur's friends in the story? And so Fern, his friend, his girl, isn't selected, but Mr. Zuckerman, who is not his friend, really was. And so it just inaccuracies. This was from a more obscure novel called The Cellist of Sarajevo. And, we throw in that five paragraph essay prompt. And the main character, it identifies as a he, but really it's a she. They've got a dragon is a character from the novel, but they've got the wrong name with the wrong character. So all of these different types of things, the mix-ups, we need to collect those and show our students that it's for real. You likely have had some other examples. I would love it if you shared those in yours as well. Now, here's what Len was talking about. If you look in those yellow boxes, there's some fine print there. Always review the content for accuracy, bias, use professional judgment. ChatGPT can make mistakes, right? So it does remind us, it does warn us, but gee, that's pretty small font. So then as teachers, it's important to always point that out to our teachers as we work with them and our students. Like, it's small, but it's there. And we have to really take a look at that. So that 80-20 rule, we have to teach the skepticism. We have to normalize that we shouldn't accept AI at face value. Some things that you particularly want to check: facts, statistics, quotes, either from historic figures or literature. AI will happily, confidently make those up. And so those are some things that we want to highlight for our students that are typically things that we should check because of their red flags. How many of you have used perplexity.ai? That's a version of a large language model. It does have sources. It provides sources. The paid version of Gemini or Copilot will do those as well. But we need to teach source checking. And so Perplexity will, when it generates an output for you, it gives the sources. And so you can check those and say, oh, I don't like this one. I want you to redo your results. Let's get rid of these two sources, and it will regenerate. So we need to model the use of those tools. Tech Tools for Teachers, episode 197. Brian's our big podcast guy. Shanna Martin talks about that. Yes, right? Here's a great workflow. We're going to skip this one, but I just want to, we won't do this one together, but this one, I'll just talk through how this works. If you ask AI, which 5 countries have the highest life expectancy? This is an idea that I saw from Holly Clark. I've got a bunch of outputs on my screen, and you can see that sometimes the countries are entirely different. In the top ChatGPT one, Hong Kong isn't listed. In the Perplexity one, it's number 1. In this other one, it's number 2. So you can see that sometimes the states are there, but they're all different, or they're different orders, or sometimes they have others. So for example, Hong Kong, Hong Kong's a city state. It's been absorbed by China. That's on some lists, not the others. What does that look like? So we need to teach about lateral reading, which is check multiple sites. Don't take AI at face value. Don't take the internet at face value. This has been an important concept with Google searching. Lateral reading. Check multiple sites. We need to continue that kind of that kind of digital literacy. And now more than ever with AI, we have to teach our students to do that. So this stop and do would be to do that question about the AI life expectancies and then have students share that. So that's a good one as well. We'll just keep going on because we've done some playing. The next one we're going to look at is safety and privacy. So we need to be careful, follow what our school boards say, comply with our laws. In Alberta, we use FOIP, Freedom of Information. US teachers have FERPA. The EU has the GDPR. What companies are keeping your data and training their models on it? Which ones are not? And they're, that's often a sales point, right? We don't use your data to train. No one's looking at your data. We need to teach our students that they have to be very careful, especially if they're using a free ChatGPT at home, that it's using, it's looking, it's using, right? So if we're putting in lists of names and lists of student data, that could pop up in somebody else's ChatGPT output at some point. These are not personal, private tools. We need to reiterate that. The data is money, right? And so every time ChatGPT, OpenAI is free because it's using us. We are its product. We are its, every time we put something in ChatGPT, we are giving them our data, our information, and they're using that to train and to profit. This particular slide has some really great, it takes us to the OpenAI's privacy laws. And so they're very open about what that looks like. It's great to go through that with your students. And then there is an interesting little example, the webk.robinlinus.com is an interesting third-party app. When you click on that link, it tells you, it gives you an example. It pulls all the information from your computer, and it tells us what AI or what sites are gaining from us. What type of computer am I on? What's my time zone? What's my IP address? What tabs do I have open in the background? What else am I running on my machine at the same time? It's mind-blowing what it knows about you. How long have I been on this tab? How many times have I posted or have I prompted? Like, it's just, it's crazy when you look at that data. So that's an interesting one to show students what that looks like. Here's a list of things that we need to constantly talk about with our teachers, our students, about what we shouldn't put in there. Any PII, personal identifying information, we need to help students understand what that is. That can be last names, certainly any kind of social insurance number, even student numbers, birth dates, especially birth dates, phone numbers, email address. That's good digital citizenship. That's nothing new. However, I'm stunned all the time at the ways that students will be tricked sometimes into giving that up. And so we need to keep coming back to that. It can also look like grades, transcripts, discipline records. So if we're throwing in a spreadsheet and asking it to do a summary or asking it to do, give us some correlations, we have to be careful about the model. If we're throwing it into the free version of ChatGPT, we've just given up all of that data, health information, financial information, photos, all of those kinds of things, communication logs. We have to be very careful about where we're putting those. This list is one that I've gotten from Eric Kurtz, Control-Alt-Achieve. I'm sure lots of you know him. Super source for AI topics. And then how do we anonymize data if we want to use the power of AI? We want to make sure that we're reducing last names, birth dates. We get rid of all that. We redact that. We remove it before we put the data in, and we want to be specific. So here's a nice little quick activity. There's 2 prompts, and you can write these prompts however you like, but we give these to kids and say, this is what I've put into ChatGPT. You can even just put this on a piece of paper, have them cross out the things or highlight the things where it's TMI, too much information. So here's a prompt. Here's another prompt. And you can, I can see my students putting this in. I have my teachers making me write a personal essay about overcoming a challenge. Okay. Common theme. How I dealt with being bullied throughout middle school by this girl with her specific name and her group. I had to switch schools. I had to see a therapist. My mom and dad got a divorce because of it, like all of that, right? So give them some TMI examples, and then, come back and help them. What can we get rid of? We want to prompt specifically, but help them understand this is personal information. We can still get the same output without giving it all of this. Thoughts there, Katie?
I love that to do that with students. I have definitely done that with adults, but I've never had kind of the thought to do that with your students. And it's important to not only educate our educators, but our students as well, that we should not be sharing all of our personal information into something. It's not like you're posting it on social media, but it is really important to not put it into tools like this as well. And that's something really important to highlight. I love that idea.
And I would say typically lots of our students do post too much information on on social media as well. So another, nice little workflow is to just give them these prompts and have them, either discuss or have them physically, be able to cross it out or talk about in groups. Lots of ways that you could run this, but show them this is what too much information looks like. Let's identify that. So just a way to hit home with a concrete example of looking at that information. The last one that we're going to look at is plagiarism and copyright issues. Huge, like we can do a whole session right here. Basically, if you're not sure, students, if you can use AI, ask. Teachers, outline specifically. No AI here, or you can use AI for brainstorming. We can use AI for our outline, but like we have to be more deliberate in guiding our students. And again, that's a whole session on its own. We also want to talk about citing. And this is a great little mind, no, I was going to say mind game. That's not the right word, but a nice little way to frame it for students. So if your students are in doubt about when to use AI, when it's good or not, this is a little tip from Helen Gredix at Penn State. And I love this. I've used this lots. If you're in doubt, students or teachers, about when you can use AI, replace the Gemini or the ChatGPT with the name of your brother or your sister or your tutor that you might normally go to for help. So here's an example. Can I use ChatGPT to do my homework assignment for me? Students, we know students are doing that. But if you say, can my brother Sam do my homework assignment for me? They'll like, well, no, that's cheating. So if we do that replacement, that's really helpful. Look at the next one. Can I use ChatGPT to brainstorm some ideas to help me get started on a project? Becomes, can I brainstorm ideas with my sister, my mom, the guy sitting beside me, Sam, to get started? Yeah, that's probably okay. So this framing where we take the AI and we replace it with a parent, a friend, a colleague, that it's just incredible how much that can put it into clarity. So that's a really neat go. You might have seen the stoplight. Red is no, yellow is maybe, let's look at the situation, and green is yes. In fact, I'm going to create this assignment expecting you to use some AI. Now, not every school is at that point yet where we're directing students to use AI. As high school teachers, we have to start to look at that. When is it okay? When is it not? You can use it here, but not here. We need to start to have those conversations. Citing, I've got MLA citation link there and also an APA citation link. So some teachers require that specifically, and you would basically put your whole prompt in there. But another model is basically also to say, okay, here's my brainstorm, here's my outline in my Google Doc, here's my final draft, and then at the bottom have an AI use what's the word, citation. I used AI to brainstorm and to outline. This is how I used it, right? So having students identify, so it's not hidden, it's not prompting and pasting and hiding and trying to get away with it. It becomes the thing. And so that is part of where we can go for that. I've suggested here a way to do that is to use Perplexity. Perplexity is a safe one with students because they can use Perplexity without logging in. And so that's one of the tools that I have been using with high school kids because there's no login. It's anonymous. And so it's a little bit safer. Our district isn't at full student use yet. So we can also talk about what's being assessed. Is it the writing or the ideas? Have that conversation with kids. Great video here from Dan Fitzpatrick. He has an early book, The AI Classroom. If you haven't read that, it's a good one. Nice video about how if AI is cheating is a skill. Great one to use with teachers. This is Holly Clark's AI detector grid and why AI detectors are a problem, that we shouldn't be using them. So I love that graphic. I'm going to pass that along to you. The general AI world is saying AI detectors are not reliable. There's lots of reasons. They are harder on certain kids than others. We can learn to become a human AI detector, and that's one of the videos in my little series. And we're just going to slide into the finish here. This is Matt Miller's cheating continuum. Great conversation. Where's cheating? This is great to use in a staff meeting. And then finally, about AI, over-reliance, skill loss. That's a conversation that we need to have. There might be a link on this slide that takes you to my little playlist. So each of these is broken down into pause and play videos that you can watch as a teacher, share with your teachers, use with your class. Reminder to sign up your classes for our CS First next week. And Katie, do you have a feedback link for us in the chat? There you go. Any final words there?
Thank you all so very much. We really appreciate it. I do see your question, and I will grab that link for you right now and plop that in the chat for you. And
I've got it. Here's the playlist, the YouTube playlist, Brian, to that series. And then at the front of the slides, I've got a couple slides that kind of go to a blog post where I've got that all linked as well.
Thank you all so very much. And please make sure you do fill out that feedback form for us. We would greatly appreciate it. We appreciate your participation, diving in and chatting with us throughout the session today as well. We hope that you have a wonderful day. And thank you, Cami, so much for a great presentation.
All right. We need to teach our students and our teachers about AI. Bye.